Views expressed by Casters Guild members are only the opinions of that member, and that could change from day to day. Guild members may use mature language, but that in no way means they are mature. Listener discretion is advised.
It's Thursday night, and you've got your dice, and your best friends are on their way. Assuming you aren't in quarantine, in which case you're getting the video chat ready. Either way, it's your favorite time of the week. It's time to roleplay. And that's the spell we're casting tonight on Casters Guild. Thank you for tuning in to tonight's episode of Casters Guild. I'm Rick Perry, Guild Master and forever DM to the stars.
And I am Baron Kane, Guild Master and forever DM to Richard Perry.
And tonight, in case you haven't guessed, we're talking about tabletop RPGs.
Which are generally not D&D. We have to throw that caveat in there.
Sure.
We've already talked about D&D, but we want to cover... Okay, I was going to say all the other games that aren't D&D, but...
That'll never happen. It'll never happen. We could talk for the rest of our lives nonstop, and like that would never happen.
Because while we were talking about them, they would release more.
Uh-huh.
Good. I've talked about this before, but the best thing about geekdom becoming mainstream is all the badass shit that's coming out with it.
Now, I will say, I'm not going to promise we won't touch on D&D because that's kind of the curse of the tabletop role player is you end up playing a lot of D&D no matter what.
But the point is
we're going to try to focus.
We're going to shine a light on some of the other games that we like.
So let's just go ahead and start with one of our usual questions and say, other than D&D, what is your favorite tabletop role-playing game?
That's I will say that's tough because my favorite, I'll say, if we're going to narrow it down to game, I will say Werewolf the Apocalypse. Werewolf the Apocalypse is my favorite. Wow, I may even like it better than D&D. But that said, I also like just White Wolf.
Sure.
The White Wolf D10 system.
World of Darkness in general.
Yeah. I'm not a huge fan of the new World of Darkness stuff, but man, they did something right with Changeling in the new World of Darkness.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's beautiful. Also, Scion. Love Scion. Love it. Didn't get to play a Baron too terribly much, but it was still good. But yeah.
I've heard good things about the new Vampire system. I haven't had a chance to play it. My wife and I have talked
the new
about
World of Darkness. I can't remember the name of the system that it was. The system itself isn't hateful. I don't hate the system. But I wish that they would have come up with new games for the new system instead of taking all the old stuff, changing the world completely and turning it into something else.
Sure.
Or even did a After the Apocalypse.
Right.
Maybe, you know what I mean? Gave the same lore that they used to have and made it something new. I don't have a problem with that either. But them just being like, oh, we're going to rewrite everything. Reboot. Yeah. It's like, there's a lot of lore. A lot of lore that you're just ignoring now. Now, I will say there's a lot of problematic shit that they got to erase out of their history after they...
Yeah.
But...
Which might have been the goal in the first place.
But at the same time, just, again, sequel. Don't acknowledge that shit. Move on. Or even in the book, hey, this shit right here that we had, it's gone now because it's problematic. We're not doing that anymore. We had a whole book with a derogatory term for Romani people, and that was the name of the book. But we're going to ignore that now. Cool. That's all I had to do. They even switched hands in terms of ownership. So yeah, these new people, while I'm sure they may have blood on their hands from something else, they have at least come into a property that they could just be like, look, we bought this property because we saw potential, but we're going to go ahead and just delete this shit because it's problematic. That's all you have to do.
Nope. There's also, I've talked to a lot of fans, this is kind of a tangent here. I've talked to a lot of fans of White Wolf in general who have their own lore in their minds for White Wolf and their own way the system works.
Oh, yeah.
Because they half read the books and then just started playing the game, and like they've had like long running campaigns, and then they go back and read the book and be like, that's not what I remember.
Now let me touch on what you just said there before you go on. I don't trust anybody that has read any book, any role-playing book, front to back, and remembers everything. I don't trust you. You're not welcome in my bar. Okay, move on.
So perhaps these new owners of White Wolf were one of those gaming groups who had established their own lore and their own way of playing the game. And when they got their hands on it, they were like, wait a minute, this isn't how we remember it. And they just rewrote it how they played it.
You know what? If that's what happened, I have a new respect for the New World of Darkness, and I may appreciate it way more. But yeah, and also I want to have a conversation with the people who thought what they were doing was the actual lore from the original Changeling game and wrote the new Changeling game, because wow, they could not be any more different. But yeah, probably that. I mean, I could totally see that. I could totally see that on a few different games that have come out with new editions. Like, I wonder, like, again, I said I wasn't going to touch on D&D, but I wonder how many times they did D&D in the new editions, and like they were like, oh, look, in my game we don't do THAC0, so let's just do it this way. This is our house rule. This is how we do it. Like, I wonder
that 100% has to be it. Like that's playtesting in its purest form. You get somebody who's like playtesting or not even playtesting, they're playing a current edition of the game.
Yep.
They find out something isn't working. They come up with their own house rule. The house rule ends up working way better. Like, that's playtesting right there. Mm-hmm. They're playtesting that house rule for that entire campaign.
Yep. There very well could be. Speaking of, I want to do a cleric sorcerer. Like, you use all the sorcerer rules, except you get to choose from the cleric spell list. I
think that might exist.
Well, guess what? It definitely does now, because that's what I want to do, and I'm inspired. I want to do it like Final Fantasy is what I'm wanting to do.
I believe it's called the Divine Soul Sorcerer.
Do they get to choose from the cleric though?
If they don't get to choose from the cleric spell list, I think it's a very similar list. Like, I know they get a bunch of divine spells, which is what you're really talking about when it comes to clerics anyway. You're talking about like the healing words and the spiritual weapons and the
right.
righteous flame or whatever that thing is called. But yeah, I'm pretty sure they do.
Nice.
If they don't, then there's some Unearthed Arcana or house rule book somewhere that they do.
Gotcha. I'll look into that.
But anyway, yeah, that'd be really cool. I mean, that's taking some straight up JRPG flavor and injecting it into your home tabletop game.
I mean, I'm a big Final Fantasy 1 fan. I love the white mage, black mage, red mage.
Mm-hmm.
Which, it's just supposed to be a wizard, a cleric, and a bard. That's all.
Right.
That's what it is.
Right.
Let's be real. But yeah.
Which is so blatantly that it makes me wonder why they didn't call it that.
You know what it was? It was... I want to know what the original Japanese words for those classes were.
And
then see how they decided that they would translate it when it came over here.
That's probably it. And then, like, when it got to the English localization team, they were probably like, that guy's wearing red clothes and that guy's wearing white clothes. So that's a red mage and that's a white mage.
This one's using healing magic, so he's obviously a white mage, and this is a black mage because it's about destruction, and this one's wearing red.
And it also makes me wonder if maybe that was the point when they didn't want to say the words priest or cleric in a game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. So now I want to look it up, but see, and again, this is why I like I like our discussions like this, because we're allowed to be ignorant of things.
Oh God, could you imagine if we were professionals and like we had to have fact checkers all the time? We had to be right all of the time.
Oh my God! Thank God no one listens to these.
So back to the original question.
Oh yeah. There was a question.
I'm going to say my favorite tabletop game tabletop role-playing game outside of D&D is Dread, which I don't think you've had a chance to play yet.
The Judge Dredd?
No.
Oh. I have a story about that, but go ahead.
So Dread is a horror game, and it's not played with dice. It's played with a Jenga tower.
Oh, yeah, you told me about this, yeah.
Yeah, so basically you pick like something you'd find in a horror movie. Like the first time I ever played it, it was like a cabin in the woods style slasher flick, right? And people don't fill out character sheets. You give them character questionnaires. So like it'll say, you were always known as the jock in high school. What sport did you play and why? What did the doctor say about you missing hours at a time from your day? What is the special bond you have with your twin sister? Like you just, when you're doing your character questionnaires, there are certain things that are assumed about the character, like facts that are assumed about the character. And then the player gets to fill in how that character feels about it, or little details, or they flesh out the character. And the questionnaire kind of forces them to do that. So like the character basics, which for a lot of I like one because it teaches new players how to flesh out a character, because a lot of new players, they only build the basics. And then you're like, okay, well, this is how you kind of turn it into
you got too many people that just focus on the numbers.
Right. And Dread does the opposite. It's like, we've given you the basics of your character. Now let's flesh it out. Right.
Yes. That's awesome.
And then there are no numbers. It's basically what it comes down to. You're telling a story together. And if your character goes to do something that they don't excel in. So if you're a nurse and you're trying to bandage a wound, of course, you get to do that at no penalty. It just kind of happens. You just go, I bandaged this wound. But if you're that same example I gave earlier, you're the high school jock and you try to bandage a wound or something like that, then you have to make a pull from the tower.
Okay, yeah.
And so over time, the tower becomes more and more precarious. So there is literally a physical manifestation of growing dread in the center of the table between everyone who's playing. And your storyteller can say, okay, well, then give me a pull for that action. Or the storyteller might say, oh, you got to pull 2 in order to do that. Or you got to pull 3 in order to do that. Okay. And it's standard Jenga rules. So, you can only use one hand. It can't be from the top 3 rows, standard Jenga rules. Now, there are other things you can do as a character. For example, you can push over the tower instead of pulling. And if you choose to push over the tower, then whatever you do succeed at. Whatever it was you were trying to do, you succeed at, but you also die. You sacrifice yourself. Mm-hmm. So like if you were trying to protect someone else, you could push over the tower and you do successfully protect them, but your character is now dead. And that's what happens anytime the tower falls, is someone dies. So whoever touched the tower last dies.
Got it.
So, and essentially you play the game until until the story's done. But for your standard horror fare, that's going to be one or no people left. You know what I mean? You have your final survivor, your classic horror final girl, or whatever, or nobody survives. Because, sometimes horror works that way.
Right.
And when I played mine, the way I told my story is actually one of the stories that's in the back of the book, if you get Dread, which is, you can get I think it's like a $5 PDF, by the way. If you just go check out their website, you pay $5, you get the PDF, I think. But one of the stories in the back was the Cabin in the Woods slasher film that I played. And the way it played, one of the players at the table was the killer, but none of them knew who it was, even the killer.
Okay.
So we got to a point in the story where it was going to decide who the killer was. And basically, I had the 2 players who had gone off alone into the woods pull until one of them died. And good. The one who was left over, they were now the killer. Like, they killed the other player, and they were now the killer. And they had to play out the rest of the game as the killer. And so it came down to it, like, later on, I think when we found the killer, there were, like, 4 people left in the game. So then the killer killed one of them. So it was the killer and 2 more people. And then at the very, very end, it was down to the killer and 1 more person. And that one person ended up killing the killer. So that was like the end of the movie. You know what I mean? They managed to take out Jason or whatever.
Gotcha.
And then, you know, if you tell, depending on how you want to tell the story, you could be like, did they? You know what I mean? Like, you know, yeah, that sort of thing. But it was a very, very fun game. It led to a lot of tense moments, like the killer versus, like when we were trying to figure out the killer, the moment where we figure out who the killer was the most intense game of Jenga I'd ever seen played in my entire life. Like, I was sure that tower was going to fall over on the next pull. 15 pulls later, they were still playing. And it was insanity. You'd have to see it in order to know just how crazy it was. But yeah, it leads to a lot of really cool moments like that. We even did have a moment where somebody pushed over the tower because they wanted to protect somebody else. And it was before we even knew who the killer was. And so it led to that heroic sacrifice moment. So if you're trying to tell a really good horror story, it just lends itself really well to that.
Nice. So I do have to say that I kind of like the idea of maybe like throughout the entire game, let people role play, but then like as soon as 2 of them walk off, be like, okay, now do the thing. And like they draw. And then like in the very end, the one person that's still left, it's like, well, you were the killer the whole time. And then just, but then as the DM, as the game master, you've taken notes throughout the whole game and be like, okay, well, this person died here. And then you have to go back and explain how, like, that person, like, these 2 people walked off this way. You have to explain how this person who was nowhere near them killed them. So, yeah, that would be a fun exercise for the person running the game.
Lucky for me, the person who ended up being the killer was someone who kept going off by themselves anyway. So it was really easy to tie it back. So it was like, oh, you remember when you went off by yourself to check out the garage? Oh, that's when you snuck out the back of the garage to the shed and took out this person. Or do you remember when you went off by yourself to check out the boathouse? Well, that's when you snuck upstairs and you took out this person.
Right.
You know.
Well, then you could even be, they'd be like, well, I couldn't have because I was with that person when that happened. Yeah, but that trap that you set.
Yep.
Because obviously you set traps to kill everybody.
Right.
So, yeah. Oh, yeah, that'd be that. And that's something that a lot of people don't get to fuck with is the DM, GM, storyteller. They usually have stuff set up beforehand. And then they're letting the story play out. You don't really have a lot of instances where the storyteller gets to play with what the characters have given them and come up with the whole story with the story that they laid out.
And with Dread, you have to. The only thing you can set up with Dread is like certain tent poles, like certain things that you like, story beats that like have to be hit. And other than that, it is 100% whatever the players come up with, and you have to work on the fly with that. And I think the coolest part about it, actually, the thing that I like about it the most, I know I've been like, oh, I like this, I like this, I like this. But with a lot of tabletop RPGs, if you try to run horror, nobody's ever really scared. Like if you're playing D&D and you throw a bunch of zombies or skeletons at somebody, like nobody's ever actually scared playing a tabletop role-playing game. But with Dread, when you're describing the situation as a perilous situation, a scary situation, and then I say, okay, now make 2 pulls from the tower. Like people legitimately feel some form of fear because they know that tower could fall. And like that sense of fear grows and grows and grows as the game goes on because that tower gets more and more likely to fall. And people actually get the chance to feel, and it's not like genuine fear or anything like that, but it's a very similar fear to the fear that you feel when you're watching a scary movie. So I've never experienced that with any other tabletop role-playing game.
Gotcha.
And being able to, just the way the mechanics lend themselves to actually being able to feel like you're playing in a horror movie.
Right. Yeah. A lot of times you have to rely on the person telling the story to be able to experience that. You know, I felt legit fear playing Call of Cthulhu. Hell, even D&D. But again, that all relies on the person running the game. So it's cool to have mechanics that lend itself to that.
It's always good when the storytelling and the mechanics link up.
Now, I will say that this made me think of one of the first games. Well, no, not one of the first. This will be the first installment of games I've heard about or but have not gotten to play and or will never get to play. Sad times.
Which will be the majority of this podcast.
It's called Blades in the Dark.
I've heard of this.
Heard of it. Okay, good. So it is. Let's see if I can get a publisher here. I'll keep looking for the publisher. Game designer is John Harper. I don't know if that's the publisher, but anyways. So this game is you're playing in like a fantasy or medieval times kind of setting, and you are thieves or assassins or people who operate in the dark, people who run in the shadows. Wait a minute, that made me think of another game that I'm going to bring up during the course of this podcast. Anyways, and it sounds cool, and it's something, I mean, come on, we've all thought about, playing in D&D, a whole group of scoundrels, assassins, thieves, bards, human fighters. You get it. But the core mechanic of this is, well, let's see, the core mechanic that this, and I think it's Evil Hat Productions, by the way. A robust core mechanic which puts the fiction first. The strength of a character's position matters just as much as the character's ability scores. So a lot of this is set up on the fly. From what I understand, keep in mind, I've never played this game. However, like a lot of this is set up on the fly. So like while you're playing, you're trying to sneak into this building. And let's just say, you're like, well, I scouted this area out before, and I noticed that there was a back window that was unlocked. Okay, roll for it. And then you roll, and if you make it, then yeah, that window's unlocked. Or if you fail, you scouted it out, but they must have remembered to lock it. You know what I mean? And just that idea is great. One, it takes a lot of fucking pressure off of the person running the game.
Right.
You know what I mean? Being someone who is experienced, who has experienced running a game with a heist in it, oh man, let me tell you, this sounds way less stressful. And just the idea of it, I love the idea. You could run this game as just successive one-shots. You're working for a thieves guild, assassin's guild, whatever, and you start the game and you're like, okay, well, this week you guys get a job that you have to go kill this high official who's crooked and who's ruining the city. So, all right, there's your task. And then you go through that. Maybe you get some awards and stuff like that. But it doesn't have to be a storyline at all. Because you're people doing a job. And
you just got hired. That's all the story you need.
Yep. And that takes a lot of pressure off, too. That takes a lot of pressure off the person running the game. That takes a lot of pressure off the people playing the game. And then if you want there to be an ongoing storyline, so be it. One develops as you play. You start out the game as people just doing a job. Maybe you start meeting some NPCs. Maybe you start, doing some downtime stuff. This game looks like it could be a lot of fun, and with the right encouragement from any of the members in my gaming group, and I mean any one of them, I would be tempted to buy this game and run it for them.
I've heard this game played before.
Any one of them.
I've heard this game played before, but it wasn't fantasy medieval. It was like 1800s London.
Oh, that's fun too, though.
Yeah, like the Cockney London gang, the
fucking what? Oh, you know what? It's not Victorian London, but you immediately made me think of the. Oh man, I can't remember the Peaky Blinders. That's it.
yes, that's exactly it. Think Clockwork Orange. Think like there's a Assassin's Creed that came out not long ago that like was like a London.
Too.
Yeah, Dishonored's another good one.
Mm-hmm.
And then like there was an Assassin's Creed that came out that like you played like a gang in London, and yeah, like that whole thing. Like that's the era they played it in, but they used the same game and the same mechanics.
If I was running, it would probably be a fantasy kind of setting.
Sure. But, yeah.
Because I mean, let's face it, I know at least one of us will want to play a cat person.
Yeah.
If not 4 of us.
Just a bunch of cat burglars.
Oh, man.
But going based off of games I've heard played, I'll tell you one I'd really like to play was Delta Green.
Okay, tell me about it.
Delta Green is a Cthulhu Mythos game. Like it is a Cthulhu game.
This
is
really familiar now.
Delta Green, you are like highly trained operatives, like a special forces who are sent to deal with paranormal events. So you deal with like Cthulhu, Eldritch type stuff. Like that's your job. But you're still a human. So like a lot of the downfalls you have when playing a Cthulhu game still apply to you. Like you might be a highly trained special forces individual, but like when you see some eldritch shit, you still have a chance of going completely balls out insane. Yeah.
Yep.
But the cool thing is, depending on what the situation is, you could still like call down from headquarters and get yourself some body armor and some guns, and like, you know, it's modern times.
Mm-hmm.
So like you can outfit yourself. And so it's never your job to, let's say, kill Cthulhu, because obviously you're not going to.
Right.
But like some eldritch stuff is going on, and it's your job to contain it or keep it out of the eye of the public.
So, funny story. Remember how we were talking about how some of these things that are coming out has to be, you know, these people ran a game and they put in like their own little storylines or their own, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We played a very similar game to this. My friend Maxwell ran it. But he was inspired by the movie Vampires, I think. John Carpenter's Vampires.
Okay.
And we were just like, we were this unit, and we had tech, not like, you know, crazy high-tech kind of stuff, but we had military gear, and we rode around in a van, and we worked for this organization that was shadowy, but and they sent us to these places, and it was a lot of fun. So I know I would have a lot of fun playing this game.
Oh yeah. I really want to play Delta Green. I think that'd be very cool. The only Cthulhu game I ever played in, I played in one Call of Cthulhu game. My character was a Navy doctor.
Okay.
I just put myself in as a doctor because nobody else had any of those skills on their character sheet. I was joining the group that was playing kind of late, and I was like, okay, if somebody gets hurt, I can patch them up. But in the session we were playing, we ended up picking up this goat, and we just decided to bring this goat with us. I don't know why.
I thought you were saying ghost, and I was like, okay, Cthulhu. And even more, I don't know why I'm weirded out that it was a fucking goat and not a ghost. Why am I weirded out that it was a goat?
Oh, you will be in a moment. Give it time, sir.
No.
So we ended up picking up this goat. Don't know why we kept it. Named it Billy. We were like, okay, Billy, you're going to be with us for the rest of this, whatever we're doing. And then later on, I ended up seeing some real eldritch shit, and I went insane. My character went insane. And so the game master rolled on the insanity table and was like, okay, let's see what your insanity manifests as. And he was like, okay, it's bestiality.
No.
And I was like, and we have a goat. And he's
That's
like,
bad.
Yep. Yeah. And he's like, so what are you doing on your turn? And I was like, I think you know what I'm doing on my turn. You really got to make me describe it. Like,
yeah.
So, and that's what I did for like an entire combat.
Wow.
Yeah.
Just take fuck the goat, huh?
Pretty much. Because I was insane that entire like the thing came out that we were supposed to fight. I went crazy. it got rolled as bestiality, and then I was just like, okay, I guess I'm disabled for this combat.
So, since we're talking about Call of Cthulhu, again, this is another great game, but it's also a very great game system, the Chaosium system. I don't know if that's the system that they use, but my favorite system for Cthulhu is the Chaosium system.
Okay.
There's quite a few games that you can run off of that, mind you. But I also make the argument that you could run a D&D game using the Chaosium system. Well, also considering that there is Elric. Are you familiar with Elric, the God
Not
Killer?
really.
Okay. So there is a book series by Michael Moorcock called, the main character is called Elric. And they made a role-playing game based off of it using the Chaosium system. The Chaosium system is great in that, for the most part, it uses the same stats as D&D. Strength, dexterity, constitution, all that stuff.
Sure.
But for those of us that like a skill-based game, man, Chaosium has a shit ton of skills. And even a part where you can just add in skills, too. So it's very open. It's not very restrictive. It's great. So, that being said, I had been playing in cons. And one of the cons, I believe it was CapCon, and it was in Ohio.
Okay.
United States, Earth. And at the Ohio State University, apparently I have to say it like that. And I played, we were people coming from out of town, and we were investigating this small town. I shit you not, 15 minutes into this game, I saw something that broke my mind, and I was insane. I lost my character 15 minutes into this game. However, the game master took me to the side to role play this part out, and he was like, "Man, I'm sorry. You lost your shit. You technically you're dead. You're dead. I'm sorry." And I'm like, "Will you let me keep playing it though?" And he's like, "You really?" I'm like, "Yeah, dude. I will play." So what's my derangement? I can't even remember what it was, but and he was like, "Yeah, I mean, if you think you can do it." I was like, "Okay." So throughout the game, the characters knew that I had, the players knew that I had gained some sort of derangement, and I played it.
Sure.
So they knew that I was kind of insane, and that's fine. But I also, throughout the course of the game, ended up sacrificing everybody else in the game and called forth the big baddie from the middle of the lake. They didn't realize what was happening until it was too late. And like the end of the game was me standing, and this is all stuff I roleplayed, me with my arms raised at the lake's edge, dropping to my knees as this fucking eldritch horror emerged from the waters. And I won this little ditty from, I know that
nice,
you guys can't see it.
Yeah.
See it on the sending stones, but I keep this, it's a pint glass that I keep behind the bar. It says Arkham Pale Ale. And honestly, it really gave me a love for pint glasses, like weird pint glasses. So,
sure.
Yeah. So yeah, and the whole, like, we got to vote on best role player at the end of it. Everybody else voted for me. And I was like, but I killed you guys. But that's what you get when you get people who appreciate role playing and not, I'm here to win a game.
Yes. Yes. And that's a big thing when you're playing a lot of role-playing games, tabletop role-playing games that aren't D&D. Games like Call of Cthulhu, Dread, Apocalypse World, Paranoia.
Well, White Wolf, the game master, is called a storyteller. They're there to tell a story.
A lot of games that don't have those super crunchy rule sets, you know what I mean? Like, they are all about the role play.
Yep.
Like, you can play a game of D&D and have zero role play in it. Like, you could create yourself a dungeon that you want to crawl through, literally have your characters kick down the door, kill what's there, take its shit, and move on to the next door. But with a lot of these other tabletop role-playing games, you just can't do that. Like, the game doesn't have the rules for it. It's about telling a story.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's what I like. I like collaborative storytelling. Now, you know, don't get me wrong. There are players out there that love mechanics over anything. And I am constantly in awe of these people who are able to make these characters who are so numerologically superior to anything anybody else can make, where they accidentally do 500 points of damage as a level one human fighter, and it's
right.
I don't get it. How did you do this? And they're like, well, this is how you do it. And I'm like, that is nope. I don't have a degree. I can't do that.
Mm-hmm. You take this race with this variant and add this feat.
Right.
Take yeah.
Remember how I asked you if I could use this homebrew? That's why.
Yeah. So I could break it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, right.
Which I will say, I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with broken characters if you're using them for roleplay.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's fine. It's also, again, still really impressive.
Yeah.
It's really impressive to see people doing that. And as long as everybody knows going into it, I mean, it just don't use the character to ruin a story.
Right.
Be there to have fun. Keep in mind that there's a story to be told.
There's absolutely nothing wrong with being the Saitama or the Goku of your story. Right. You know what I mean?
Right.
But it has to be the story you're telling.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely agree to that.
Which brings me to another one. I was trying to remember its name, and it just came to me. Fiasco, which I don't know if you've... Oh, okay. So Fiasco is another one where you're trying to basically create a movie to the point where you have scenes, you have characters, like you are a player like you are playing a role. You are like, this is your character, you're playing a role. We just haven't given you a script. Like you're basically improvising this whole movie. And the only dice rolling for the most part that happens in Fiasco is at the very beginning of the movie when you're setting up the scenes. And so you've got dice that end up making a scene end well for you, dice that end up making a scene end up poorly for you, and you can spend your dice on your scene as you're going into your scene, but halfway through the scene as you're role-playing with somebody else who's in this scene, somebody else who's not even in the scene can just kind of like push a dice across and add it to the scene. And like, you just got to know, okay, well, this means this scene's not ending well for my character. And now you have to role play that.
That sounds awesome.
Yes. So like I've seen it once again. I've seen this one played. This one I saw on a YouTube channel that I watched, and they did like a hard-boiled detective type movie,
like a noir kind of.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. And it was great. Just the acting they put forth in it. It was awesome. I'd love to play that one.
I love those games. Love those games when you see people really throwing their all into their character. Yes. And I know I harp on this a lot, but I don't know. It's just something about seeing somebody get into their character and just getting into it. I love it so much.
It's what role play is all about. I mean, like, if you're not trying to play the character, don't play a role-playing game, you know?
Exactly. Or, again, I will say, know what you're getting into before. Don't be one of those people that are like, you know what? I'm going to jump into this, and I'm going to do everything I can to be like the broken character. You know, talk to your game master and be like, hey, is this going to be a combat-heavy thing? You know, should I make this character to be, you know, ultimate combat, you know, damage dealing, you know, what do I get to expect out of this? And I will tell you what I want as well. You know what I mean? Don't let the GM dictate your game. Don't let your players dictate the game.
Yeah.
You guys are telling a story together. So please work together to tell that story.
Because even if you did show up with that broken combat character, if it comes down to like that you guys are playing like the Diamond Heist game, like you might be sitting on the sidelines for the most of it. Like,
Yeah.
sure, you might come up with the combat and might have your one little moment to shine, but for the majority of it is like doing espionage and information gathering and picking locks and deception and stuff like that. Your big buff guy carrying a sword is just going to be sitting there not doing much.
And I can hear it now. You have those people that are like, well, a good GM would. No.
Yeah.
A good GM, yes, probably could go out of their way to change the story, to make it so that they can fit in. But you know what? That's not necessarily always, it shouldn't always be their responsibility to do that. Right. There has to be some give. There has to be some take. You know what I mean? So maybe next time, especially if you know going into it that it's going to be a heist type game, maybe next time make a character that can sneak around as well as club people in the face when need be. You know what I mean? The Thieves Guild needs bruisers too. We get it.
Yeah.
But even the bruisers can sneak from point A to point B.
Yeah. If you've poured all your points into strength and you've got nothing in dex and you're clanking around in your plate armor,
right.
Right. Gonna get very far.
You made a paladin to the god of light in this heist game. You're an asshole.
How am I supposed to figure out in this story how to make it okay for you, to make you feel okay that you're stealing this thing? Like,
yeah, I could go on and on. But speaking of morally ambiguous, there's a game that I've introduced you to that I love. Haven't gotten to play the new edition yet, but I've been playing this game for a long time. Shadowrun. I love Shadowrun, which can go right into Cyberpunk as well. Cyberpunk is just Shadowrun without magic.
Right.
Oh, I'm sorry. Maybe Shadowrun is just Cyberpunk with magic. However you want to look at it.
Right.
Yeah, I love it. And I just described the game. But Shadowrun is basically a game of, I don't want to say mercenaries, but they are Black Ops. No, not even Black Ops.
I mean, soldiers of fortune wouldn't be a bad
there
term,
are soldiers of fortune, but there's also, thieves and they're basically people that do jobs that aren't legal.
Yeah.
So they have to keep to the shadows. They run the shadows. And in this world, there are countries ruled by dragons in disguise. There's magic. There's shamans. There is the one thing that I friggin' loved. I would have to say that social justice has been something that's been near and dear to my heart. And in this game, there is a whole nation or two of Native Americans. Like I will have to say that I think they may be First Nations people, because I think it's in Canada that I'll have to look at the map again. They change a lot of stuff, but anyways. You have the Native Americans, the First Nations people that aren't living on reservations in this game. They are, they have their own sovereign governments.
Right.
And they are a huge friggin' deal in this game, and I fucking love it. I love it. Now, this game was made in the 80s, I think, so I'm pretty sure I could go back and probably find, again, some problematic fucking stuff, but but for the most part, I love the idea that in this world post Ghost Dance has turned out this way. But that said, there's also elves and orcs and dwarves and trolls, and the elves have their own little sovereign nation as well. It mostly takes place in Seattle, but there are also source books where they show what's happened in other places. Like there's a whole European source book. This is great. Shadowrun itself has actually influenced a lot of my storytelling, and I've worked a lot of that stuff into games. Now I really want to play again. It's kind of like its own system too. The magic system in it's so weird, but you just use D6s. That's it. D6s.
Sometimes a crap ton of D6s, but still just D6s.
Sometimes a crap ton of D6s. It's just why I have my D6 box that is missing most of the D6s because of the last game we played. But yeah, I think you got to play in a game of it, I think, that I ran.
Yeah. So if for those of you who haven't listened to every episode to ever come out on the Sending Stone, in our post-apocalyptic episode, I talked about a game that Baron once ran for me and a couple other friends, where I didn't even realize I was playing Shadowrun. He was just like, hey, let's tell a story and play a game. And like, we only rolled dice one time at like the very beginning of it, and then we did the rest of it diceless. And I think a couple other people who had played Shadowrun before like figured it out halfway through what we were playing. But me, I was oblivious the entire time. I had never played Shadowrun before. And I thought it was really cool. I mean, like, once I found out that that was Shadowrun and I realized what could come of that little improv story we told, I've wanted to play a game of Shadowrun and, like, create a character and do all that stuff ever since, and just haven't gotten the chance. But, yeah, absolutely. And, you know, I want to say we have been, on our Twitch channel, been playing D&D for quite a while. And even when we aren't playing the story that we normally play, we usually run some sort of one-shot or some sort of D&D, but I think we need to try to throw in some of these other systems sometimes on our Twitch channel.
Absolutely. Yeah, halfway, or I would say as soon as you started this line of thinking, I was kind of hoping that this is where you were going. But yeah, I think that we might have a couple people that aren't down for that.
Sure.
Like, I think some of our people really like the consistency. I think they like the ongoing game. I think that they like having this ongoing story. But at the same time, like I was saying before, I have so many games that I don't get to play. And
well, nothing would stop us from the 1 week where, say, one or two people can't show up. Instead of running another D&D one-shot or another offshoot. Or I will say I did have fun running the game where we played D&D, but nobody knew what was on their character sheet. Mm-hmm. I thought that was fun. Like, and I've got a couple other ideas like that. But instead of doing those, we could always just run a different system.
You know, actually, oh fuck, never mind. I'm sorry. I was just thinking something I could do, but this would just be another ongoing campaign. Crap. It'd be a lot of fun, though. In fact, I think I may end up doing it. I'll be perfectly honest right now, and let's just hope the rest of the group doesn't listen to the podcast. God, that's counterproductive, isn't it?
It's very counterproductive.
I am actually working up to the end of this campaign that we're in now.
Oh yeah?
Yep, there is an end in sight. I want you guys to experience the end of a campaign.
We've been playing this one for quite a bit now. So
it's weird to think of that.
Nothing should stop us from... Yeah.
We started this game at the beginning of like the big pandemic lockdown. So it's been a few months.
Yeah, because I think when the pandemic lockdown very, very first started, we started some stuff that we were recording and didn't put on Twitch. And that was a different campaign. But then things really got into full swing, and a couple of the people who were in that game couldn't come over to your place anymore. And so that's what got us into our current game, because it was basically we only played with people who could play from home by themselves, properly quarantined and socially distanced. But yeah, it's been a while now. Like something we planned to just be a couple of sessions, I think, has turned into quite a long thing.
If I was to end this campaign next month, it's still gone months longer than we intended.
Yes. The crisis is crazy. Which makes it even crazier to sit here and talk about tabletop role-playing games, because some of these things, okay, it has never been easier to play games over remotely. To play games without being together. But a game like Dread, like I was talking about, you can't play that over Discord. Right. You can't play that over Google Hangouts. You have to have people over. And it's crazy to be in this hobby and certain games to just be like shut out entirely as an option. You know, you cannot play this game unless, of course, I mean, you are in a big family who all happen to like tabletop role-playing games and you are quarantining together, in which case I'm jealous. But, you know, have fun.
Yeah, I actually have friends who are in a 5-person family, and they're all 16 and above, and it's like they can play games together. They actually they own the theater in town too, so they go and have family movie night, and it's like,
oh, nice. Like, can I
going to the theater?
Can I draw up the adoption papers now?
right, exactly. Adopt me in, please. Yeah. The State Theater is here. The State Theater in London, Ohio, is a wonderful, wonderful family-owned business. I know nobody hearing this is ever going to be exposed to that town or that theater, but I mean, they're just great. I love them. They're great people, and they really took a theater that was this close to. You can't see through the sending stones, but my fingers are really close together. This close. Yeah. I mean, you tell them how close together those are.
Oh yeah, they're almost touching.
So close. It was that close to just dying and being gone forever, and they kept it alive for a small town. So yeah, kudos out to them. Oh, now I have all these board games I can't play either. And anyways, we're talking about tabletop role-playing games.
Yeah, tabletop role-playing games. Yeah, and
how it sucks. Do you have an installment of games I never got to play or have never played, but would really love to? That may or may not be sitting on your shelf.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Let's see. I'm trying to think of the name of one of them.
So this is what I think we should do. You go ahead and think of that game, but then after that, in one fell swoop, we get the books that are just sitting on our shelves that we've never played or really haven't played in a while, even, and we just want to play but never get the fucking chance.
Well, there was one, I forget what it's called, but apparently it's a really small little book. I don't have it. A friend of mine has it. But you're basically playing Ghostbusters. Okay. And I don't know the name of it, but he's tried to pull it out at like every time we had friends over and we were playing tabletop RPGs or box games or whatever. And it was
you're just ignoring me.
You learn over time that you just don't reward that behavior.
If I just ignore him, he'll stop. Ooh, shit.
It was like Ghost Investigators or something like that. But he was like, yeah, it's super easy to learn. It only takes a couple minutes. I can run a game in an hour or two. Like, we should totally play this. And I've always been down, but it's never been enough people. Like, you know, you get a bunch of people together for a game night, and they're like, oh, I don't want to learn a new game. I want to play Munchkin again. And so we play Munchkin again. You know what I mean? But I've always wanted to play it. And another one was Paranoia. And I don't know if you've ever heard Paranoia.
You know what's fucked up is I've been at a con where they were playing a live action Paranoia.
Oh God.
No. I was at a con where they played a live action tune. So don't even get me started on weird ass LARPs I've seen people play. But yeah, the live action Paranoia was great because they even worked in props and rooms, and it was great. It looked great. Oh, jeez. Yeah.
God forbid you pick up a prop that your rank is not authorized to touch.
Right. Yeah.
Like but you need it to complete your job, but you're not authorized to touch it. Like, oh, jeez.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Paranoia would be fun, but I want someone else to run it.
You want to play.
That, and I don't trust myself. Ironically, I don't trust myself to run the game.
I think I would be excellent at running a game of Paranoia.
Okay. All right.
Like, I think like those kind of minutia and like catching people on shit and be like, oh, I'm sorry, did you just cross the red line? Oh, I'm sorry, did you just like talk about the color blue? Like, you're not even supposed to know that color exists. What?
And really, we don't even really have to tell you what the game is about. Just us talking about it. I'm sure our viewers are getting the gist.
Yeah, they're getting a general idea of how that game works.
And I know I mentioned Toon. It's exactly what it sounds like. You're playing a cartoon. You are a cartoon with different cartoon abilities.
Pulling giant mallets out of your pocket and whatnot.
Yep. Yeah, but oh man. And I will say this. One of the future episodes I want to do is LARP. So we could definitely talk about that more later. I think I'll have a lot of fun with that. Especially considering when I say LARP, everybody hearing me say the word LARP has a different idea of what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah.
And let me tell you, when I hear LARP, I think rock, paper, scissors.
Sure.
Right? So you know what I mean. You know what I mean. And strippers in New Orleans. Wait. That's a story for another cast.
You're just going to have to get that in the sending stone for that one. If you want to hear more about strippers in New Orleans, you're going to have to tune in.
Again, strippers in New Orleans. All right. Moving on.
I will say I've had some fun playing and running Parsley. See, you give me that look like you've never played before, but I've run a game of Parsley for you and just you over Facebook Messenger.
Oh!
Yeah.
Did you ever tell me what it was called?
I don't know. Probably.
We're going to go probably not. My memory is
Parsley is a small book that tells you how to run text adventures for your friends. So if you've ever played Zork or anything like that, you have an idea of what I'm talking about. You know, you describe a room and you say, you enter a room, it's dusty, there's a portrait to the north, there are exits to the east and west, and a fireplace to the south. And then the way you traditionally run Parsley is, let's say you have 4 players. You then go
4 players.
You go clockwise around the table, and each one of those players enters a command into the computer. Yes. If you're running the game, you are the computer. So you're all playing one character. So if player 1 says, examine portrait, you then describe the portrait to that player, and maybe they find something or maybe they don't. And then player number 2 could say, exit east, at which point the player character that all the players are controlling will exit to the room to the east. And then you describe that room and so on and so forth. I ran a game of this for Baron, and the title of the game was Flaming Goat.
That was my nickname in high school.
And it was a pretty simple premise. In the book itself, where it tells you how to run this game, it is literally 1 page long on how to run Flaming Goat. I think it took Baron either about an hour to figure out. Yeah.
Obviously, I think there was, some distractions and shit.
Yeah. Because we were back and forth on Facebook Messenger. But it took Baron about an hour, because the whole thing is with Parsley. I don't know if you've ever played any of the Zork or King's Quest or any of the text point-and-click style adventures. But a lot of times the computer can be a bit of a snarky dick. Like, you go to do something that you think is the right thing to do, and the computer will take it literally in a way you didn't expect the computer to take it, and be snarky and come back with a comeback. And that's what Parsley a lot of the time is about. If you are running the game, is coming back with some snarky response and telling them, nope, that's not the right thing to do.
I think I would have had more fun knowing that, especially, and also treating you like a legit computer.
Yeah.
Like, if I treated you like a legit computer and not like a person that was running this game for me, I think it would have been a lot funnier. Because when we did games like this, okay, hold on. By we, I mean like the millennial, old millennial, Gen X, young boomer generation that played these games. We would try to do something, and the computer would be like, "That is not a legit." You know what I mean? That's not a legit command. Well, fuck you. We'd always get that is not a legit command, but with a computer that is playing back the snarky comments, the computer could easily be like, "Well, fuck you too."
Right. And I've had a friend.
I think Alexa. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I've had a friend of mine run a couple of Parsley adventures over Facebook as well. So, like, he would start a Facebook status that says, you are in front of a castle. There is a lake to the west. There is a mailbox to the east. The entrance to the castle is to the north. And, like, that would be the first status. And, like, he would let people comment commands. And whoever commented, that was just the next command he would take. And he would literally run it as if every comment was the command that got entered into the computer. And basically it was a bunch of people on his status, which is a really cool way to run a game when, like, you're in a social distance situation. And literally anyone can jump in or out at any given time.
Because I was thinking of running a game on Facebook that way, but not with Parsley, but just being like, you enter a room, I think I might do that. Anybody listening to this podcast, if you're not on my Facebook already, you're not invited, because that Facebook is for personal use only. And I'm not going to let you do that. And it's hard to do that on Twitter, so I'm not going to do it on Twitter. I'm not going to do it on Instagram. Get over yourselves. I got nothing.
You could totally do something like that on TikTok, though.
There's a lot of people that were doing stuff like that on TikTok, like Momo O'Brien.
Yep.
And I think she even did that on accident. Like, she didn't even mean for it to start out like that. Feel free to correct me, all two of you listening right now. But I think that she started this completely on accident and just ran with it. And she came up with a great story. Great story, which, by the way, I've been following her on YouTube for a while now, because she did some stuff at LARP, and like she did a LARP video and stuff. She's a really, really great person. You get a chance to check her out on YouTube. You get a chance to check her out on TikTok. Follow her social. She's really cool, really creative. I will shill for other people for free. I don't care.
Yeah, totally.
But yeah, Parsley is a lot of fun. Obviously, it's nostalgic, and I love it.
I will say, if you've never played a text adventure style game, it can be a little bit harder to get into. But
It's especially for those people who have no mind's eye theater at all. It may be hard for them to understand, especially that this was an actual thing, but then also visualizing it.
But if it sounds like something you'd be interested in, I mean, we're not sponsored, but Parsley is made by one person, and he's putting out all the books and all the stuffs all by himself. If you go to mementomori.com, that is MEMENTO-MORI.com. The hardcover book is $30. And when I paid for it, I think I paid $35 to get both the hardcover book and the PDF download. And the PDF download you can also purchase there, and it's super cheap. So, like, don't pirate it somewhere. Like, go pay the $5 or whatever it is and support this creator, because he made a really cool thing.
Definitely. You know what? Let me talk about one more game that I think that people should really get their hands on before I pull off the games from my shelf. There is a there is a game that I started out playing, and this is going to go into games that I want to play. It's called Tiny Dungeon. It's something I wanted to run for you guys, but it's a really, really simple game. In fact, it actually reminded me a lot of that super game that you ran. It's a D6 game. You generally roll 2d6, unless you have some kind of disadvantage, then you roll 1d6.
Right.
Or if you have advantage, you roll 3d6. Tiny Dungeon is a fantasy world. However, at the end of the book, it has a list of several different settings that you can set your game in, and they encourage you to make your own setting. But if you can't or won't or don't, then there are several settings at the end of this game that you can run your game in. It's great. I don't have the game around me because I downloaded it from DriveThruRPG. Again, great resource for anybody that is looking for games. DriveThruRPG, again, not sponsored, but I will shill for people that I like. But not only is it fantasy, but they also have a super game. They have a post-apocalyptic game. I think they have one or maybe two more different settings, and it's great. I love it. It's a deep and rich world with a very, very simple game system. It's the first thing that my daughter played in. She loved it. I think she ate a dwarf. I'm not 100% sure. Sorry.
It's Gallant Knight Games, by the way.
Who
makes Tiny Dungeon.
Yes. But,
and they're in their second edition.
Yes. But like I said, I think when I originally got it, it was on DriveThruRPG. I think that was the only way I could get it. But I'm pretty sure they're doing stuff on theirs. The original one was a PDF that I had to download and print out. So I printed it out and had to put it in a binder. Then I got a physical copy, I believe, from Gallant Knight for the Tiny Supers, and I have a copy of their Apocalypse game.
I was just on their website, and it looks like they've got one called Pieces of 8 as well, which I have to assume is a pirate one. Yeah, which I would be very interested in.
Yeah. You would love it, Rick. It's a great system, like I said, and if it's anything like any of the other ones, you are going to love it.
Well, like you said, it sounds a lot like the super game I ran, which, by the way, was City of Mist. If anyone missed that live stream, had a ton of fun.
Was advertising them so much.
yeah, which is honestly why I found it. But City of Mist is based off the Apocalypse World system, which a lot of people use the Apocalypse World system for their own games. But the Apocalypse World system has a lot of games based off of it. And so if you are interested in something that's also very rules-light, like Tiny Dungeon, I would recommend anybody just Google Apocalypse World and then whatever setting it is that you're looking for. Nice. Apocalypse World Pirate, Apocalypse World Superheroes, Apocalypse World Noir. And you'll find somebody.
Which is a very popular format for people to do, I think. You look at Riffs, you look at GURPS, you look at, the Apocalypse World. I mean, it's good. I like it when game systems do that.
There's a very cool Monster of the Week one made with the Apocalypse World system, where basically you're playing your own version of the game the show Supernatural or Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and then you're tackling whatever monster it is that week, and you have like your moves and stuff like that, and different characters you can play as. And there's a whole fantasy RPG one called Dungeon World that's basically very similar to Dungeons and Dragons, except it's played with 2d6s, and it's very player facing. The storyteller, dungeon master, whatever you want, game master, whatever you want to call him or her for the Apocalypse World system, once again, it's just setting up certain tent poles and then leaving the story open to the players. And you don't have to say in Apocalypse World games, you don't have to say, is there, like, let's say you're going through a dungeon, you don't just have to say, is there a torch on this wall? you can say, I find a torch on this wall, and then, you know, you can roll for it. You know what I mean? And it's very similar to the other game that you were talking about, the Blades in the Dark. You know what I mean? The players run the Apocalypse World games. I know that's not quite how I ran that City of Mist game, because it was my first Apocalypse World game that I had run, and most of the players had never played an Apocalypse World, so like we were kind of going based off of the RPGs we had played in the past. But if you play it as written, it is very player facing and very rules light.
Nice. Yeah, you told me about this system lots of times before, and it sounds great. I just so many things to play.
Yeah, that's the big issue. Is so much to play and so few time and players.
I'm like legit getting sad.
Which is fair.
Man. Oh, I felt my little heart breaking, just like.
I'll tell you, people talk about the curse of the forever DM, like but like that, in my opinion, is the true curse of the forever DM. I don't mind having to run every game that I play, which between me and you, like obviously I don't and you don't, right, because I run games for you, you run games for me. But like in a lot of groups of friends, you do end up having the same guy run every game.
Now, hey, I did just get news that well, actually, you know, the one cool thing that we've gotten to experience playing a game together with the Spawn running.
Yeah. This is very cool.
That was fun. She did a great job too.
She really did. She really did.
I was actually
especially for how little prep that she had.
None.
Like
no.
Yeah. Like I ran a game earlier that day, and then she went, I want to run a game, and we were like, yeah, totally run a game. And then a few hours later, we were playing. Like.
She's actually a big inspiration to how I'm running the game we're playing now.
Yeah.
I was like, if she can fucking do it, I can do it.
To finish what I was saying, like a lot of people say the curse of the forever DM is that you have to run every game and you never get to play. My personal opinion, and this might even be a guild decree, so like,
oh shit,
hold that thought.
Uh-oh.
The true curse of the forever DM is that you will always have 100 ideas that you never get to run, that you will never come to fruition. I mean, you know what? That's Guild Decree. The Guild Decree, the true curse of the forever DM, is you will always have hundreds of ideas you will never get to use.
It's true. And you know what? That even applies to you walking right up to that game with this idea that you're about to lay out, and then the players are like, nope.
Yep. Just complete left turn. And you're like, all right,
just
you know what, that's it. Nope. You know what? We're hopping on the guild train. I'm railroading this bitch. Come on. I put too much work.
I'm not even kidding. I was thinking about putting the guild train into one of our next games. I really was. Yeah. All right.
Lightning round. Ladies and gentlemen, if you saw the stack of books that our bartender Baron just pulled up from down in the wine cellar, you might faint.
They make me sad. And this isn't even necessarily counting the source books for D&D that I want to use, like the Theros book that I just got that I would love to use. The Wildmount. No, not Wildmount. Shit.
Okay.
Before you book that I just got. Anyways, go ahead.
Before you go over the giant stack, I will go over the very minuscule in comparison.
Okay.
Of things that I've wanted to do that I haven't had the chance to do. A lot of them being D&D related. I have a few of those boxes that you can buy from Dungeons and Dragons, like the Stranger Things starter kit. I would love to run.
Oh yeah, I have that too.
The Rick and Morty starter kit, I've only gotten halfway through with a group. We still haven't finished the second half. And I will also be counting. These are technically box games, but up until the Crisis, I had a group that we were playing Betrayal Legacy with every Sunday. And I missed that so much. It was an ongoing campaign. Might as well have been a tabletop RPG. And when we weren't playing Betrayal Legacy, we were playing Time Stories. And I don't know if you've ever heard of Time Stories, but it's a really cool game. If you buy just the regular box, you can only play it one time, because once you've figured out the story of it and how to beat it, like, it's the same thing again if you play it again. But you can buy expansions for it, and basically the idea of it is you and the other players are a group of time agents, so people who travel through time and correct wrongs in the time stream.
Okay.
So you have to figure out, you get to a certain time, you have to figure out what's wrong, who's causing it, and how to fix it. And then you fix it, and like, it's all done through cards. Like, you have a deck of cards, and it's like, don't flip over this card until you've flipped over this card. And so you don't necessarily need a storyteller, because the game does it for you through cards. But playing that was very cool and very role-play. I still have an idea for a Dungeons & Dragons campaign where all the players play Toads from the Super Mario series. Like, every player character is a Toad.
Gotcha.
And you are on a journey to summon the legendary hero to the Mushroom Kingdom. And the legendary hero is Mario. So, like, once you manage to get Mario on the scene, that's the end of the campaign, because then he does his whole thing.
Okay, that's kind of cool, though. I kind of like that idea just in general. You play characters that are trying to summon the
legendary
chosen hero.
Yeah.
You are not the legendary hero. You never will be.
Yep.
Oh my god! That's
And last one, I want to play one where you roll stats for your character, but you do it in order, and there are no rerolls.
Ew.
Like, so, like, you don't have to decide before you roll your stats what race and class you are. Like, if you roll high strength and low dex, be like, okay, I'm playing the barbarian, or okay, I'm playing the fighter. But, like, I would love to play a game where you roll stats down and just down the list and just stick with what you get. And I'd love to turn that into a survival style game.
Yeah. Hell yeah. I will tell you this, that's how fucking D&D used to be.
Mm-hmm.
You roll straight down, and if you don't have a high enough dex, guess what you're not playing? The elf.
Right.
You're not playing an elf because you don't have a high enough dex. Get to the back of the line, human. Oh man, those days. Oh, it's my turn.
I would never actually like force that on my players, but like it would be neat for like a one.
Oh yeah, going into it, and everybody knows, that's different.
Yeah.
But if you're like, everybody sit down, this is how we're doing it. It's like, I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Let's look at this stack of books.
Let's do it. All right. Okay, first book is Hellas. It's by Kepera Publishing, Ethereal Forge. It is essentially ancient Greece in space.
Holy shit.
So, yeah, you can see the front cover there. It's a nice Spartan guy in, like, power armor. But on the back is, like, a centaur-type creature.
Oh, geez, yeah.
But really, that's just like a space squid in an exosuit that just happens to be a centaur-type creature.
Oh, that's neat.
Yeah. Then they have a race of, like, ant people, I think, which is funny because, you know, that's what Myrmidons are. Like, Achilles' Myrmidons are ant people.
Okay.
Yep. So, yeah, you have Amazorans. Oh. They're, like, really big blue women. Gorgons, which are snake people. Right? The Hellenes, which are the humans. The Cyclops, which, thinking about it, I think that's how they're pronounced. They wouldn't be pronounced Cyclops. Well, maybe they would be Cyclops with the Y after it. I'm not fluent in Greek, so I'm not sure, but the C is usually a K sound, which is why it's Kerberos, not Cerberus. Yep, Myrmidons. They're actually even called Myrmidons, but they're insect swarms. The Nephili, which are like angel people. Like I'm thinking they probably should have called them Boreans, but that's fine. The Nymphas, which are like plant people. Zentar, saying it out loud, I get it now. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, it's pretty cool. Never got to play it. Never ever got to play it. Bought it. Had a cool conversation with the creators. They have other games too that you should check out. Great guys.
That sounds very niche. You'd have to have a very specific gaming group to play that game.
Yeah, I know. But it's made by Michael Feigl and Jerry Grayson. Like I said, good guys. Stop laughing at me. Next is Outbreak Undead. As you can see, still in the plastic.
Oh, geez.
Still in the plastic. So this is a role-playing game that I thought was a card game, but it's actually a role-playing game that uses cards, and I still really want to play this. Again, zombies are my favorite horror kind of thing, and apocalypse. They're not my favorite apocalypse situation, but you know how I feel about apocalypse games. So then we have Spark. It's done by Jason Petray. Published by Genesis of Legend, Bits and Mortar. This is a game that the Spawn picked out, actually. And it's like a superhero game. It's more about destiny. And this game, you play roles of the most... Okay, Spark is a role-playing storytelling game. In this game, you play the roles of the most important characters in a fictional world. You cooperate to tell a story of heroic deeds and personal struggles. So...
Okay.
Yeah.
So it depends, really comes down to what kind of world you're playing in for that particular.
And I remember talking to the guy, I believe he was the guy that made this, but it could have just been the guy that was selling it. But it's about challenging beliefs. So your character has a set of beliefs, and they get challenged through the course of the game. And that's kind of where they get their driving force.
Okay.
Epilon, it's a dragon role-playing game.
Okay.
Plays dragons. Again, another Spawn game. She really, really dug the idea.
Right.
And we've never got to play it. But yeah, you play a dragon from like babydom to adultdom. Yeah. Again, I mentioned this earlier, Tiny Wastelands, Tiny Supers I have as well. Games I've never gotten to play, but actually Tiny Supers is Spawn's game as well. Her dragon Uncle George gave it to her for her birthday last year. Still haven't got to play it. I'm noticing that I have a lot of games for the Spawn that she's picked out. She was going through a really big superhero game phase, and she picked this out. All of them were at the Origins gaming convention. But yeah, this looks like a lot of fun too.
What's that one called?
Oh, it's called Masks: A New Generation. It's powered by the Apocalypse. I don't think it's the same system. Apocalypse-world.com.
No, that's it.
Is it? Oh, then it's an Apocalypse Engine game. I own one and didn't even know it. Yay! But it's done by Magpie Games. So yeah, hey, imagine that. Next is The End of the World, Zombie Apocalypse. This is the Zombie Apocalypse version, but I also have the gods, the deities version. It's basically a game series that centers on the end of the world, except each source book focuses on a different way the world ends. This one just happens to be the zombie apocalypse, and like I said, there's a deity one, and by deity I mean it's very Lovecraftian. But yeah.
What was the series called again?
The End of the World.
Okay.
It's done by Fantasy Flight Games. I don't have many Fantasy Flight games. Huh?
Do they use those weird Fantasy Flight dice?
I mean, maybe. They probably also have a lot of cards and bits and pieces, too.
And the cards are weird sizes.
Oh, man. Are they? What is
Well,
this?
usually in Fantasy Flight always has those tiny little cards.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I have the Arkham game. I know. I also have...
I've played a lot of the X-Wing miniatures game, which is Fantasy Flight.
Oh my gosh, yes.
And it's got a lot of those little cards and the big cards and the weird dice and all the little pieces. And
absolutely. Yep. Intimately familiar. I also have a couple games that I've never gotten to run. I'm not even sure I've gotten to play, but man, am I ready to play it. I have Iron Claw and Jade Claw. And if I have any furries out there listening to this right now, these are your games. These are your games. Telling you. Also, it's really cool how in this storyline, let's just say the Iron Claw storyline, you have all these animals that are in like this fantasy setting, these anthropomorphized animals, and horses are the main power in the world. It's like you would think that they would put a lion or a wolf or no. Wolves are like the barbarians of the world, and horses are like the kings and the nobles, and it's like that kind of makes sense though.
Yeah,
it makes
sense. I can see it.
And then also I have the D&D supplements that I fucking want to play. I have this.
Okay.
They made a whole like miniature line for these, and they're cute.
I remember seeing those. Yeah.
Completely stole my idea for a game. They are kids who have the power of the world, magic, and they are the ones that go out adventuring, and they have all these special abilities, and the adults are left at home, and they have forgotten magic, and they have forgotten all these special things about the world, and so I might as well just run a LARP about this game.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I mean, like, somebody already did a lot of the work for you. Might as well just go ahead and...
Yep, they did. So yeah, so that, and then the Theros game, and the Critical Role games, like all these things I just want to do, and I can't.
Too busy adulting.
And then I want to, you know what, really, honestly, I kind of want to force you guys, I don't even want to convert anymore, I just want to force you guys to make AD&D characters and run you guys through the Dragon Mountain module. Just fuck it, whatever. I'm not even going to convert it. Just make these characters and we're playing.
Jeez, AD&D.
Yeah, but then I'd have to force the spawn how to learn Thaco, and I don't want to do it.
Yeah, no, you don't want to do that.
I'm pretty sure if I can take nothing and turn it into a good game, I can take something and convert it into a good game.
Yeah, yeah. If you're gonna make us learn Thaco and AD&D and all that, I might be sick that day. Yeah, I might be coming down with something.
I don't blame
you. But that's the rub there. I mean, when it comes to tabletop RPGs in general, it takes a whole lot more than the love of the game. You know what I mean? When it comes to video games and other gaming hobbies and stuff like that, like, you can sit down and as long as you've got the time and the love of the game, like, there it is. But with tabletop RPGs, you've got the whole other element of not only do you have to have time, but you've got to find a group of people who also have the time. That time has to coincide with your time. Their interests have to coincide with your interests, which a lot of the times is why we all end up going back to D&D. Because everybody's played it in the community anyway. Everybody's played it. You don't have to take time teaching somebody how to play it. You don't have to spend a session learning how to play it. Regardless of what's going on, it fits most people's interests. You know, it's just...
And honestly, thankfully, it's still a good game.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
at least it's not crap, you know?
Yeah, if it was a crap game, then I might have a problem, but... Yeah.
Which might be why so many people got up in arms about 4th edition.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. I liked it, but, you know...
Yeah. Anybody that likes it, man, I'm so happy for you. God, I cannot be more happy for you. What a little trooper you are. I'm so proud of you. So proud.
I think the only reason is because it's more or less what I started with. Yeah, I played like 1 or 2 things of 3.5, but for the most part, my D&D journey started with 4th edition, so I didn't know any better.
Well, to be fair, I'm the one that exposed you to it, so...
Yeah.
Because that was the edition that was out when you first started, but, I mean, even then, I was... Again, I'm not trying to badmouth it, but, man, I was trying to muscle my way through that shit so bad. I made so many house rules just to make it make sense, and to me...
Right.
The commander, is that what they're called? The one class that lets you move people around the field.
The one I played. Man, like I had it until you didn't have it, and now it's gone. because I played a bunch of that class because I really enjoyed it. It was the first character I ever made myself. Was one of those. I want to say like War Master, but
that has to be kind of close. I think. Battle Master.
That's not it. Warlord.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, a lot of that stuff didn't make sense because they're warlords, and they're supposed to have this superior knowledge on the battlefield, but then you had people that just like wouldn't fucking listen to them, wouldn't listen to anything they told them, but they were more than happy to let you to exploit your commands to move around the field. And
Powers.
it's like, how is that even role-playingly possible? To me, it didn't make sense. But
well, luckily for us, we had a really good group. I mean, like that group you introduced me to, I came in as a warlord, and even though I was the least experienced player at that table, when we got into combat and I started issuing commands, whether I was using my powers or not, like they were like, "Yes, sir," and like they fell in line. They were like, "Okay, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this," and it worked out for us. Mm-hmm. So, which has always been my argument of in defense of 4th edition. It all comes down to who you play with, and whether or not they're buying into the fantasy of it.
Right. And I think really
my 5th edition and other editions didn't necessarily require that as much.
Correct. I think my biggest problem with 4th edition was that it relied too much on the miniature aspect of it.
It really did.
And D&D is not a miniature game for me. And I know a lot of people are like, they rely on these miniatures. They fucking rely on them. And then that's their big defense. But it's just like, look, if you wanted to play a miniature game, play a miniature game.
Right.
This is a role-playing game. However, that option is now there.
Yeah.
5th edition really makes it so that you can play either or.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm okay with 3rd edition did that too. You can play either or with 3rd edition. They explain things rather well with like 5-foot moves and stuff like that. Sure. But 5th edition kept that up, and I like that option to be able to slip into the mind's eye and not have to rely on,
sure.
Miniatures and stuff. So yeah.
Whereas I always have been a miniatures guy, and it's probably because I did start with 4th edition. That like when I'm running a game, I really do like having the miniatures. But obviously, I've played with you, and you can tell I can do it without the miniatures too. But like when I'm running a game at my table at home, like when we get into combat, I usually do pull out the miniatures, unless I'm feeling lazy. And then I'm just like, we're just doing this one in the mind's eye, guys. Like it's.
I will say that I will, if someone wants to make miniatures, mm-hmm. I'll encourage it. Bring me your miniatures, everything like that. Even if you just want to show off your character that you got this new miniature for, right, please do that. And I may even run a few combats where I'm like, okay, break out those miniatures, and I'll put out some candy monsters because it's fun. And once you beat a monster, I let you eat the candy.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, there's tons of ways that you can do it. Tons of different ways that you can do it. And I like miniature games, and I like even incorporating miniatures into my game sometimes. But I don't think that should be. So 4th edition was so reliant on it.
Yeah, it shouldn't be so required.
Right.
But everything was written in such a way that it assumed you were on a battle map.
Right.
And exactly. I think that was in an attempt to sell miniatures. Like, I think they were like, we're not going to make our money selling these books. Like, we need to figure out another way to make our money. Oh, well, how about these power cards? How about these miniatures? How about these different things to enhance your battlefield? Like these, spell cones, stuff like that,
It's because they they didn't know how to market it. There are plenty of different ways to market D&D that don't involve miniatures or changing the point of the game. And again, I think that the Critical Role guys are proving that.
Yeah. They figured it out for 5th edition.
Yeah, and like, yes, they did. They're definitely doing 4th editions, like splat books were just crap. Sorry to anybody that liked them. I apologize. But they're really branching out with this 5th edition stuff. And again, like like I was saying with the Critical Role guys, they're selling D&D stuff, But it's not just like source books and stuff. They're doing like fucking coffee mugs, toys. And I really think that Wizards has caught on, or Hasbro, whatever, has caught on, and they're like, oh, nerds like goofy shit? It's like, yeah, motherfucker. Yeah,
of course we do.
Shit. We live for goofy shit. We will burn down your house for your goofy shit. So yeah, I mean, like, I'm chilling here with a little, plastic mimic and a little spectator or whatever the fuck they're called, and it's like, yeah, give me a big plush owlbear, man. I love this shit, I don't want to just get books. I already have enough books. You give me your base books and I'm fine. Drop those books. I will figure out the rest. If you give me more, awesome. I really love the Theros stuff. Like I said, that's great.
Yep.
But after that, give me goofy shit. Give me a hoodie that I can afford. Give me, mass produce this shit so I can actually afford it.
Right.
Don't just make a custom made piece of shit for $50 that I can't afford. Because I barely afforded your book in the first place.
Right.
Get me a pair of socks that are cool, that makes me look like I have orc feet. I love it.
Yeah. Not to mention, when it comes to that kind of stuff, I will buy a lot of that stuff in a heartbeat. Because if you're wearing, like right now, my mask that I wear every day is covered in poly dice. You know what I mean? Like, I've got 5 different masks. All of them have poly dice on it. All of them have D20s, D10s, whatever on it.
Nice.
And I wear those every day because there's a chance someone will come up to me and be like, hey, I like your mask. And immediately I know you play Dungeons and Dragons.
You're my people.
Yeah.
Nice.
Like, if I've got a shirt on, like, I wear that dragon ampersand as much as I can.
That's
like,
a great logo, by the way, D&D.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I know it's been our logo for a while now.
It's gone through some changes.
Right.
Yeah.
We just didn't really treat it like our logo either.
Well, let's be honest. We didn't treat it like it was our logo until Chris Perkins told us his name was Andy. And then we went, okay, Andy. All right. You're coming with me.
So, yeah.
But I wear that everywhere. If it's on a hoodie, on a T-shirt, on a hat, on a dog tag necklace, whatever. Because if somebody comes up to me and goes, hey, that's a cool shirt or something like that, like, I'll know. By the way, here's my email if you're looking for a Dungeon Master.
Right, exactly.
I know you live near me because we're at a similar place. I know you're into D&D, you know what I mean? And I know Dungeon Masters are often in short supply. So hit me up.
It's awesome. Yep. Have I mentioned that I love how open we can be about this hobby now?
Yeah. Yeah.
I hate that we as a society have not developed further than we should have, but I love that we have made some headway.
Yeah.
We've made some headway with accepting people for their hobbies, their interests, their religion, their race, their sexuality. I'm not quite where we need to be, at all.
There's still the chance when I go out wearing my Dungeons & Dragons t-shirt that some woman will come up to me and tell me how that's satanic and I shouldn't be wearing that. Like, if I wore it in the 80s, you could pretty much guarantee that was going to happen. But nowadays I can wear it, and yeah, there's still a chance it'll happen, but nowhere close to as much as it would have happened back then.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
Huh. All right. Now I'm just getting all nostalgic and feel goods, and well, I'm not going to apologize for that. But.
No, that's a good thing. That is definitely a good thing. That's the point of Casters Guild, honestly, is like, hopefully somebody else listens and goes, oh man, that does make me feel good.
Yeah. Yeah. But it also kind of makes me want to go out and get a ampersand shirt now.
Oh man, there are so many cool ones though that you can get. Like, have you seen the ones where the entire dragon ampersand is made out of dice?
No.
Oh my god. Hashtag not a sponsor. But hashtag could be a sponsor. If you want to send us some D&D merch, some dragon ampersand shit, we will totally like tell people where to find that stuff. Like, I will mention it at the beginning, middle, and end of the podcast and put it in the description. I will sell out for your ass.
There we go. That's a new hashtag. Not a sponsor, but totally could be.
We'll totally sell out for you.
Well, again, closing another one on the thought of everything we could have talked about and how this could be a podcast that went on for years and years and years with no end. Makes me sad, but also makes me happy that we still have plenty of games that we still have yet to play, and that there are so many games out there. And just because of that, we will have years and years of podcast material that we could go on and on about.
This is why we're going to be the generation who's happy to be in the nursing home, because all we're going to do is sit in the nursing home with other nerds and play all the games we never got a chance to play.
That's right. That is right.
But thank you very much for tuning in to another episode of Casters Guild. We release new episodes on Monday. We are streaming on Twitch every other Sunday. Check us out on twitch.tv/Casters Guild. And if you have any questions for us, any ideas for episodes, send us an email at castersguild@gmail.com, and we will answer your questions right on air.
Yep. And then if you wish to see me in anything outside of this podcast, you can feel free to look me up on probably any social media under Baron Kane, one word. I'm on Twitter, I'm on Instagram, and I have a lot of fun on TikTok. So if you wanted to check me out and then on any of those, I would be more than happy to see you there. Just let me know. Let me know if you're following me from this podcast, and I would be happy to follow you back.
Check some links in the description. I'm sure we'll have some there. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye, 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 bye.
Bye. Go roll some dice or something. Bye. Bye.
Bye, 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 bye.